I'm Sarah Peg Hofstetter with SEPH Custom. Today we're going to take a look at this chest. Old Waterfall chest, 1930s I'd bet. I'll do some research on that. You can see the paint here. I don't know what that is. There's a nice plant stain. It's really rough right there. And over here, some more scratches and paint. Oh, looks like another water stain. Maybe another plant, glass. You can see the darker stains here and the chipped veneer. When you tap on the top for the veneer, you can tell where it's loose and where it's not. So tap if it's hollow, it's loose. This is a big strip of veneer that's missing. We'll fix that too. Now the problems don't end there. You can see also on the top and on the sides the grime and the failing finish. So always start by cleaning your piece thoroughly. This is an old lock button. You push it to open the thing. They said there's not a key, but we're going to see about that. Sometimes they're hidden. So right here, I'm just going to go ahead and start scraping this finish. It's so fine and so thin. I don't think I'm going to have any problem getting through it. That's our kitten. That's Truck Dirksen coming over to take a look and see what we're doing. That's going so well that I'm just going to show you real quick what 120 grit sandpaper over a sponge is going to do. It's just going to take the rest of that finish right off after the scraping. So we're back to scraping, and always be really gentle and careful on these edges. See how I'm using my finger as a guide? That's actually what I'm using. There's very, very little pressure. On a waterfall veneer, you know what you really can do is damage the edge. So you have to scrape very gently, sand very gently over that curved edge. Here I'm tracing just a little bit. Gonna take a look at the way that the shaping of the missing veneer is so that we can cut a piece. I always save the veneer from pieces that I can't save, or any extra that I come across. Always save that up. It's good to have with you. Just tracing the edge there. There are a couple of scraps of veneer that I have. Both are walnut. I think they're similar with the just a finish on versus off. So I'm going to match up the grain as best I can. Kind of arrange it so that the grain is all matching. And then we're going to cut that out. Get it on the piece. And as you see in the background there, you just go across and find any veneer missing pieces and do the same thing. See what I mean about that wood species? Yep, guys, that's walnut. I found an extra missing piece, well, not missing, but loose piece of veneer. We gotta glue that up before we can fix these. It's time to go ahead and get those cut. I'm just using some kitchen shears. You'll see me sometimes use an X-Acto knife, sometimes it's a razor blade, sometimes it's just kitchen shears. They work. Now, I don't have a painter's knife, so I'm just using an envelope opener. You use what you've got at hand sometimes. What I'm really doing, though, is seeing how deep the hole in the veneer is. And then we're going to make sure the glue gets all the way back into the corners and inside each of the seams. See the decorations in the background? It was my son's birthday last week, so I'm just, doing this instead of cleaning up is what. Real quick, see that number right there on the back? That's a good identifier piece. There are lots and lots of options for filling. I'm going to be using this wood epoxy. You just push it together like Play-Doh or something like that until the color is all solid. And you can use wood filler for the same thing. I want something that's quite structural in case the lid's used in the future. I'm going to push it down into the cracks there. Make sure I fill all the bits. And make sure it's a little proud of the surface as well. Now coming back to it, it's all dry. Once it's completely solid, I'm going to come back through with a razor blade. You could use an X-Acto knife, chamfer bit, whatever it is that's most comfortable for you. I like to use just a razor and go along the edge and cut off the excess. Also gonna set this right on the surface, make sure I'm really carefully not going to dig out any of the wood. But look at how that putty just scrapes away. The putty's dries more solid than the wood itself, so I like to scrape away the excess rather than sanding. I will sand, but just a light grit to make sure it's nice and smooth. Use your fingers to make sure that you've gotten a completely smooth surface at the top. There's Truck coming to inspect the work again. He seems to like what's going on. Now in this portion, anywhere where you have an edge like this, really take your time. Don't start trying to cut that straight edge, not for me anyway. Some people are super talented. I am not super talented, and instead I'm going to go very slowly using my other hand as a brace. I'm going to take off a little bit at a time and work my way up to a straight line. I think you can tell already how well the grain is going to match for this piece. It's not going to be perfect. It really won't, but it'll be a lot better than it was. And I think my client will be very happy. Now, after we've gotten all of the sanding done, we're going to take a look at what the surface looks like. Remember all those rings and things? I want to see if they came out with the sanding. I bet they didn't. Yeah, see? So we're going to clean with some just mineral spirits and find any spots that are still a problem. There's a scratch still in the surface here. There's a weird light spot, a couple of weird light spots on the surface as well. We're going to do an oxalic acid treatment. On the front here, you can tell it's time to address that. And oh, hey, by the way, there was a key. I found it stapled to the underneath. I got that out. It's a cute copper key. It gives us a good hint about who made the lock. Here, you can take a good close look. It's a key maker out of Rockford, Illinois. Yep, this is going to finish up that research and we'll be able to know exactly which chest this is. Exactly when it was made. Okay, we're going to take a look at this finish on the front. It's even thinner than it was on the top, honestly. Look, one scrape of a razor blade, boy, and it's just gone. It's working so well, as a matter of fact, that I'll do a little work even with my fingernail. Okay, yeah, we may just sand this. I'm going to work at it a little bit with the razor blade, and then we'll take a look and see. You can tell the finish on the front veneer portion is definitely not the same. Yeah, look at this. Watch. Just gonna sand the finish away with like 3 swipes. So this is one of my very favorite parts of refinishing furniture. It's like my little zen. Just erasing years and years and years of damage from these beautiful woods. Like, you can't even tell that this is pretty, this part of the trim yet. Boy, wait until we get some real finish on it. It's so cool. My client really wants this piece to go back to its original form. So what I should say is restoring this piece. We're going to fix anything broken and make it look like it did originally. Always use PPE. Always use protective gear, masks, earphones, goggles. I'm going to be sanding the top using this Festool, which I adore and am out of sanding pads for, so I'm using the rotary sanding pad. We're going to see if that makes a big mess or if the vacuum works with the wrong sanding pad. I'm betting I'm probably going to make a mess. But notice that I've got it set to 3, not 6. It doesn't have to be so high. It doesn't have to work so hard. I'm using 120 grit. I'm just going to go very slowly. I'm going to go with the grain as much as I can on this kind of a surface where there's patchwork with the veneer. But I will be able to take any of the scratch marks out by hand just by moving up in grit from 120, then up to 150, then up to 220. The cedar on the interior is in decent shape, but it could use a refresh, so I'm going to go ahead and do the same sanding process on the interior. Slowly, and you can see how my hand moves on the top of it. I'm using basically 0 pressure. I am speeding it up so that you don't have to watch the whole thing. We'll finish the entire interior this way, and then I'll do that off camera. Moving on to the bottom, I also clean and refinish and moisturize and seal the bottoms of pieces and the interiors. It makes them last a lot longer. They need the nourishment of the conditioner as well. You can see that the trim was loose here, so, well, we're going to scrape that using the carbide scraper, and then once all of the old glue is gone off of the surface and off of the trim, we can glue that back in place. Now this is the piece of trim that I noticed when I was putting on that slice of veneer for the top. You can tell it's just loose. It needs to be moved out of its own way and glued back in. I'm gonna use my fingers and really work the glue down into the surface. Use that letter opener and spread that glue all the way around so that it's everywhere. And you get a good bead of squeeze out when it makes little bubbles. After you tighten it up with the clamps, then you know you've gotten a really good seal. Using some wax paper and a piece of wood, and my daughter's doing the camera work for me, so we have just a little bit more action than usual. See the glue squeeze out? Yeah, that's a good sign. Gotta clean all that up though. Okay, cleaning off the dust and using mineral spirits to see what we're working with the front of the piece. I did the sides as well. Just gonna clean that off real quick. And then I noticed some loose pieces on the bottom. We're gonna have to take those right off of there because they are loose and they're bothering the structure of the piece. So we're gonna remove those. I warmed them up a little bit and see how quickly and easily they come off. We'll scrape all of that off, clean the surfaces, and glue them back in place. We've done all of the sanding and filling all the way up to the 220. Looked for any other loose pieces, any weird divots. Now we're ready to deal with those stains. So I'm using some oxalic acid. Paint this on with a crappy brush, whatever. But what you want to do is use very warm water and dissolve oxalic acid powder into that hot water until it stops dissolving. And because I don't want the top to be a different color than the rest of the piece, I'm actually going to do the entire piece. I'm going to coat the entire thing evenly with oxalic acid to take care of the stains. And then I'll let it dry completely. I'm going to show you the process on the top, but everything gets to be done. The oxalic acid has had plenty of time to dry. We're going to take it back off with water and then let that dry all the way. And then we're going to go to Odie's oil. I love this as a finish. I'm going to use a Mercamillon pad and also a chopstick to stir it up. When you first open it up, especially if it's sat for a minute, it separates into bits. It's a tung oil based finish and penetrates into the wood. So you want to make sure you get all of the good stuff that's in there all mixed around so that it gets all over the piece. It really does a great job, and I actually really love this finish. I use it quite a lot, especially if I'm looking for the wood's like really pretty grain to shine through. So we're going to mix it up until it drops like that, kind of like thick honey. And then put a sparing amount. Doesn't take very much of this stuff, but just kind of drizzle a sparing amount onto the wood itself. And then you have to really work it in. This is not a light finish to put on. You have to work it in, and then you have to buff it out twice. But just look at what it does. To the walnut. You can really see the grain honestly starting to shine through and how pretty this piece is going to be. Once the finish has sat still for a little while, a half hour, an hour, I use just an old towel and buff it off. You can kind of see a little bit of what's happening here, but watch and see. There, let me turn the light on. Oh, there's Obsidian. That's the other cat. Let's see. You just buff and see how the shine starts to develop? And watch how much excess wax ends up on the towel. It's getting smooth. You can start to tell that there's not a film. See? So then adjust the towel and keep going. This is a really good workout, but it's a workout worth doing. I've done the first round of buffing, but watch. See the little line my finger leaves? You're not done yet. So get a clean towel and buff again. And then when you're done with that, get a sock or a light t-shirt or something like that, old t-shirt, and buff again. So this really is a cool piece. Check it out. This is solid cedar. You can tell by the grain and the way that it moves through. But also look, like narrower than my fingernail is the veneer on the top. That's why you have to be so careful when you're working with it. I'm going to use these furniture markers, especially really honestly like the Mohawk ones. They have brush tips and make really natural design. Layer is all I can say. Layer, take your time, wipe it off. If you don't like what happens, use some mineral spirits and wipe it back out. Take your time. It's a little bit of a process, but if you just layer things up, you can really mock the wood grain pretty well in most cases. Great, cedar oil time. Gonna refresh the cedar, and off camera I actually did take out the lock, clean it out, lubricate it. Just a little white vinegar and then some WD-40. And now cedar, it's great stuff. I'm gonna wipe on this oil and then give it a little while to soak in and wipe it back off. So there you have it. There's the top, no stains, no pains. Very hard to tell where patchwork was done. This is a Caswell Runyon chest made in 1946 out of Huntington, Indiana. It's a good quality piece, ready to be enjoyed for hopefully another 100 years. And I hope you've enjoyed the process. I'm Sarah with SEPH Custom, and I hope you also enjoy the final reveal. Thanks so much, guys. Please like, please subscribe, please share. Thank you for joining me today. As a reminder, here's where we started, and here's where we finished.